we set about trying to change the narrative through Thankful for Farmers to remind Australians that every single time we walk around the supermarket and we stuff our trolley with the most amazing quality of produce, to stop and think about the men and women who's growing it for us and the process that they go through to grow that. And if you think about two of the biggest challenges the world are facing, it's climate change and food security. And who's sitting at the heart of the solution to both? It's the hardworking men and women who grow our food.
That was Kim McDonnell, and you're listening to The Regenerative Journey. From wherever we are, we acknowledge the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia, recognising their continuing connection to this land, its waterways, the stars in the skies since time immemorial. We pay our respects to the elders, knowledge holders, and to all the generations of First Nations peoples who have nurtured their unceded sovereign lands for over 80,000 years and continue to do so today.
G'day, I'm your host Charlie Arnott, an 8th generational Australian regenerative farmer. And in this podcast series, I'll be diving deep and exploring my guests' unique perspectives on the world so you can apply their experience and knowledge to cultivate your own transition to a more regenerative way of life.
Welcome to The Regenerative Journey with your host Charlie Arnott.
Welcome back to The Regenerative Journey, and welcome to this interview with Kim McDonnell. She was one of the founders, with Mike, her partner, of many things, thankful related, but certainly Thankful for Farmers, which is I've had a long association with over many years, which I think we do get to in this interview, how I came to be part of their this wonderful organisation, this wonderful charity, which is all about how people can support farmers on farm and those rural communities in the production of delicious, nutritious food. Kim is quite the force. She knows her stuff back to front. I caught up with her at where they are currently on the Sunshine Coast of Queensland. So many projects they're involved with. What strikes me about Kim and Mike is their ability just to get things done with very limited resources. Well, not very limited, they're very resourceful people, let me put it that way. Very personable, very resourceful, and absolutely driven by their passion, their need, the purpose of supporting farmers. Again, as I said, in rural communities to produce delicious, nutritious food, and they are doing that in so many different ways. Also supporting the care of the environment as well. So some lots of things on their plate, lots of projects, getting some really good traction, and it was just lovely to sit with Kim, probably in one of her more quiet moments because she's always pretty busy. At their home, grateful to sit down with Kim after we've been talking about doing an interview for literally years. So we finally teed it up for season 9 of The Regenerative Journey, and I trust you enjoy listening to this conversation with Kim McDonnell for The Regenerative Journey as much as I did recording it. We're away. Kim.
Hello, Charlie.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm well. Welcome to The Regenerative Journey, and welcome to my third virtual, well, it's not actually virtual because we're right here, my third use of this technology, which is videoing us and recording us at the same time. Usually I turn up with a whole lot of gear, mics, deck, and invade someone's home and try and get it set up and hope it works. But this has been a much easier process, and here we are. And welcome to your... Where are we? Your sort of outside living area here in... Are we allowed to tell everyone where you are?
Sure, yeah.
Well, we don't need to give addresses.
Thank you. So beautiful Sunshine Beach on the Sunshine Coast in Queensland.
And this is a lovely house, very Noosa, which is kind of, the Sunshine Coast area, and it's a beautiful thing. And thank you for letting me invade your home.
You're so welcome.
What is it? Let's get straight to it. What does it mean for you to have a little sanctuary like this up here? I know it's not necessarily your forever home or forever place, but like, is it a nice place to live up here? Kind of feels okay.
It's such a luxury being able to top and tail my day with a walk along the beach. And I think in the last month I worked out I've been home 5 days. So we've been doing so much travelling with work, from Melbourne to Sydney to Townsville, to be able to come here after a busy travelling schedule where sometimes we're on 3 or 4 planes a day trying to get to where we need to get to, is just such a retreat and sanctuary, using your words, to be able to be at home and to be able to rest and restore to get ready for the next trip.
And come home. So you've been here since December? 5 days.
In the last month. We've been here. In the last month,
Yeah,
we've been home about 5 days.
We're going to get to more of the travel and why you're travelling. So let's get to you. And where did it all start? Like, where did life? Where was the moment of, birth, location, experience?
So I was born in Ayr in northwest Queensland, a tiny little town that's predominantly sugarcane country. Up just near Townsville is the nearest big city. And then my parents moved when I was 1. They moved directly inland west to Mount Isa, which is a mining town. And my dad worked in the mines. He was a security officer there, and Mum was the local dental receptionist. And I lived there until I was 17. I did all my schooling there, went to the local state school. It was all I knew. It was home. It was a tough place to grow up, but because it's all that you just think that's all that exists in the world. So when I was 17 and going through school, I made the decision that I wanted to see what existed beyond these vast red soils that surrounded my home.
And you're in town, in Mount Isa?
We were.
Yeah.
Yeah. So at the end of year 12, I had 2 choices. I could go to Queensland University in Brisbane, or I could go to Melbourne to Monash to study economics at both of those universities. And never having lived anywhere other than Mount Isa, I figured if I'm going to study economics, I may as well go to a real big city. And particularly, the distance from Melbourne to Brisbane is the same distance as Brisbane to Mount Isa. So I knew I wouldn't be going home on weekends anyway.
Oh, it's a big state, isn't it?
Huge. So at 17, packed my bags, left home and went down to Melbourne. And my first day at uni, I saw more people at once than I'd seen in my entire life, I think. And I may as well have travelled to the other side of the world. It was such a huge cultural shock. Public transport for the first time. What is public transport? How do you catch a bus or how do you catch a tram in Melbourne? I had no clue. Living on campus and not living in the sheltered environment with strangers in a co-ed environment. McDonald's. I'd never been to McDonald's in my life. I didn't know what McDonald's was until I went to university. Yeah. So all of those little things that we now take for granted, or I certainly take for granted, I had no clue. So I may as well have been in another country when I moved to Melbourne, and made Melbourne home for many years until moving to New York in 2016 to really do the work that we're doing now. It was the start of that journey, and then moved back to Australia in beginning of 2020 to Sydney. A couple of years in Sydney, which is when COVID hit as well, and not quite sure why we chose to move back to Sydney and not back to Melbourne, but we thank our lucky stars that we did, because Sydney obviously didn't have the same lockdowns that Melbourne did, so we sort of escaped those lockdowns. But when our youngest daughter left home to go to university and we suddenly had no kids in the house anymore, we figured that we would go where we wanted to go, so we went back to Melbourne for 12 months, and that was nice, reconnecting with friends and family there. But then last year, it's been 10 years since we've had a holiday, Charlie. Wow. So we figured it's probably going to be another 10 years before we have another holiday. So we thought we need to be somewhere where every day feels a little bit like a holiday, which is why we moved up to Queensland. And we're doing so much work up here in Queensland and with the Queensland government as well.
Well, as you say, at least at the beginning and end of every day, you walk on the beach, your clothes, the climate is, apart from it's been raining since you got here, but
It's been very wet.
It's a lovely, it's not called, yes, it's called the Sunshine Coast for a very good reason. Let's go back to Mount Isa. That's fascinating. And I've never been to Isa, but so public transport wasn't a thing, no McDonald's, living with family. Like, give us a sense of was it good, was it bad? Did you get up to mischief? Did you have lots of friends? What's it like living, growing up, and you didn't just like do primary and then go, or you were there for the all through your schooling in the public school there.
Yep.
So how was all that? Was was it a happy kind of part of your life?
When you're a kid and that's all that you make it a happy part of your life. And I think the thing that remains with me about my experience with Mount Isa is that sense of community. And that is what makes, I think, regional Australia so special as well. It's the community aspect of it. But it's hot. I think probably the most resounding memory I have of Mount Isa is the heat. You have 2 seasons. It's wet season, and it's wet and hot, or it's dry and hot. And, on an average day in summer, it's 39, 40 degrees. And sport is another big thing up there. It's what you do on a weekend. Life revolves around sport because there's not a lot of other social activity. So Saturdays was always softball and Sundays was always netball. But training for sport, you would either train early in the morning or late at night to avoid the sun as well. So, it was interesting. I was so determined and so passionate to get out of there as fast as I could because I didn't want to become a local. I didn't want to follow my siblings' footsteps and marry locally and stay locally and have babies when I was still a baby. So myself, I wanted to explore and see what else existed. I was ambitious.
And were other members of the family as ambitious as you, or they were content with Mount Isa community life?
They were.
Activity.
Yeah, I was the only one in my family at that time to have left Mount Isa, and I was the youngest of 3 girls.
So was there anything in that? Like, was there a reason being the youngest? Were you the more rebellious? Were you, like, was there, same genes essentially? Like, what was the catalyst for that? Your soul, just you.
Just me. Yeah, same gene pool that we all came from. But and I don't know, maybe I saw the path that they were following and I didn't see a lot of joy or particularly a lot of happiness, and I knew I didn't want that. And I always, I can remember when I was a kid and people would ask you, what do you want to be when you grow up? And my response always was, I want to be Prime Minister when I grow up. I'm going to get out of here and I'm going to do something different. And it was hard. It was really hard leaving home, being able to go to the shops and you see everybody that you know, and that community, you're able to say hello, everybody knows you, to going to somewhere like Melbourne where nobody knows you, nobody cares anything about what you may have done or how your day was. No one's going to ask how you are. So it was a really big challenge. And the easiest thing, there were many times in that first year at university living on campus where the easiest thing in the world would have been just to pack my bags and go back home with my tail between my legs and say that I failed. But I persisted, and I think resilience is a good thing to have.
Was it liberating somewhat to be, no doubt a challenge and quite totally new environment? Was there a sense of like, oh my God, this is what I've been missing out on, and like there's so many opportunities and there's so much more to the world? Was there a sense of that, or you just got on and did it?
There was totally a sense of that. And, when you are in a smaller community and everybody knows you, well, everybody thinks they know you as well, it's hard to break down or to be something different. Whereas being in a big city, you can be whoever you want to be. And it was an amazing opportunity to discover who I wanted to be and who I actually am without everybody's perceptions shaping and directing that. So it was very liberating.
It's a good point, isn't it? Like you can, in a small, and we love our rural communities, and they can be places where people can be somewhat, they're confined in I don't know, thinking, but also how they might express, because there's social norms and there's expectations and maybe obligations that kind of keep people in the box.
Absolutely. And, we're talking 35 years ago as well. So fortunately and thankfully, those social norms and expectations have evolved as well.
Yes, for you personally, absolutely. It's certainly a trait of country towns and even suburbs. Like, people who grow up in the suburb of whatever town, city, I'm sure there's that sort of those social expectations as well. So, 3 cheers to you for getting out of there.
Thanks, Tom.
What would have happened if you'd stayed?
I probably would have married a local and, had multiple children, and I'm not sure I would have been that happy in the end, because that life was not for me.
Well, okay, so let's just unpack that a bit. Down in Melbourne, university, what ecos was it? Economics?
Yeah, Bachelor of Economics at Monash. So did my first year, decided that I didn't really want to be an accountant, which was... Is
that some of the foundational stuff?
A lot of it, yeah. So I transferred into arts with a major in economic history and political history, which I really loved, which in hindsight, it was a lot more the sociology of it and why why people do what they do, which is what I really enjoyed. But again, being impatient and being ambitious, I had one subject to go to complete my degree and decided that I'd be able to do that while I work full time. So I just wanted to get out there and start doing stuff. And I never finished, never did that one subject.
One subject out of how many? How many had you completed?
Like
gosh, 39 or something.
However many was required.
A lot.
Yeah, a lot. I had one subject to go to complete my degree and thought, I can easily do this while I'm working full time. But because again, just hungry to get out there and start working, start doing it.
So how did you apply? Did you apply your learnings, your nearly degree knowledge, or did you just launch into something totally different?
Yeah, I worked in publishing, and my first job was for a scientific journal where my responsibility was to try and sell ad space in that scientific journal. So no, not really. But I think the great thing about university, regardless of what degree you are studying, university teaches you to think. It exposes you to different ways of thinking, to being able to research something and rigorously understand something, and how to accept other people's opinions and how to embrace those opinions as well. So whilst I never used my degree specifically for my career, it taught me an awful lot, that being at university. And I think that's the great thing about higher education. It teaches you to think and opens your mind to new perspectives. Yeah,
it's in the whole, I guess the forum and the context of university now is probably a fair bit different too. Like, there was no online stuff, or very little back then. There might have been a bit of external, like
no online stuff. No, it was all.
It's all face to face. All there. It's all written exams. It's all.
And being face to face had a lot of advantages, and I see my kids going through university, and it's a very different experience for them because a lot of their tertiary education has been done online, whereas my tertiary education, I was living on campus. It was that social aspect of it as well, being exposed to different people, different social settings and different environments. So I think for me, particularly coming from that very isolated regional community of Mount Isa, to experience that in a very concentrated, very quick way, it was an incredible learning and an amazing experience.
Thrown in the deep end.
Totally thrown into the deep end.
And so publishing, selling ad space in a journal.
Yeah.
What happened then? Why did you stop doing that? What happened? Any?
Yeah. So just naturally evolved from that. I then worked for another publisher who was working a lot in the education space, and then from that I went to work for a design studio who was doing design/advertising studio that was doing a lot of work in the pharmaceutical industry and with pharmaceutical clients. So that was a lot more marketing and more traditional advertising. And then from there, my career just progressed along that. I started working for bigger and bigger advertising agencies, and that's where I found my passion and my career progressed.
Is that you were writing copy for them? Was that your journalistic kind of thing? No, you were just creative.
No, it was more the strategy side of it. So more the business side of it, coming up, understanding their business problem, what their business need was, and then translating that into a marketing activity to address that business need. So more the strategic side.
So hardcore marketing stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow. Has that been useful in life?
It's been incredibly useful. And, a career in advertising and marketing it's the foundation, and it's built the foundation for everything that I now do. But you get exposed within any given day. You might wear 10 different hats depending upon what client you're talking to, whether it's a pharmaceutical client or a financial services client or a retail client. So you learn a lot about a lot of stuff pretty fast because you have to understand that client's business, and you have to get deep into their business to really understand what their business problem is in order to be able to develop a marketing solution. So it, for me, I think I get bored quite easily, then having to, wear 10 different hats in any given day, constantly learning new things on the go and having to think on your feet quite quickly. It was a great career, and it taught me a lot of skills, and I'm using those skills and applying them now to the work that I do.
Every day, and it's really about people skills at the end of the day, isn't it? Like negotiating, people, relationship building, getting to know them. I imagine, I've never worked. I think it'd be fascinating to do that.
All of those things, and understanding that different people have different motivations. What are the influences? What are the things that you can do to influence or to drive a positive outcome from that action? And I think one of the great things throughout my career, particularly as my career progressed, I really moved into that data-driven side of the marketing. And back in the early 2000s, data was only just started to be discussed as a marketing tool. But really understanding that data, understanding the demographics, the psychographics of people and the people that you're trying to influence in some way to do something that you want them to do, understanding that data side of it, because the data is incredibly valuable and using that data to drive marketing decisions and influence marketing outcomes.
It's for the layman, often, and maybe that's just me, but I get a feeling it's not, like when people think of marketing and advertising, there's sometimes a sense of manipulation. It's like, they're going to get me to buy something, or they're going to trick me, or, before you know it, you've bought something you don't really need.
Yep.
Is that true?
Is that true?
I guess it's an individual case by case. I'm sure there's some shifty salesmen who can do that, but I guess at the end of the day, that's not a good business strategy, is it? Long-term business strategy?
No, it's not a long-term business strategy. And I think, marketing is all about trying to understand an individual's need and then trying to address that need. And, to your point, it was throughout, in 2005, I co-founded my own agency with my partner, and it was a data-driven marketing agency, and we built that business. But it was during that work and with the clients that we had that whilst I really loved marketing and I was passionate about it, I was sitting in a meeting with one of our clients trying to figure out how we could convince people to buy more stuff that they probably didn't really need with credit cards that they probably didn't really want. So, and that was my big aha moment, that I'm not sure I can do this anymore. And how can I use these skills? And instead of convincing people to be, buying more stuff or doing things that they didn't really need to be doing, but actually use those skills to try and make the world a slightly better place. And, I asked myself the question, how do I want to be remembered? Do I want to be remembered for that great advertising or marketing campaign? Or do I want to be remembered for doing the best I possibly could to try and make the world a little bit better for my children and other generations of kids.
And tell me, when you left that meeting and you had maybe somewhat of an epiphany, what did you do then? Did you say, I resign?
Well, we owned the business, so it was a bit hard to resign. But it was trying to figure out how I could do that in a way that was, really authentic and that made sense, and did a lot of research as well. Again, going back to that data-driven side of my brain, that let's do some research, and understood that the world didn't need another not-for-profit or traditional philanthropic model. How could we do things differently so that it could be scalable and it could have genuine impact? And, doing all of that research, understanding a traditional philanthropic model, which is largely dependent upon donations or government grants, which isn't scalable. And, consumers, particularly when times are tough, they have limited dollars in their wallets to be able to donate to charities. So we knew we didn't want it to be that model. So did some traveling overseas as well. And this was in 2012, 2013, and the rise of the social enterprise model was just starting to be established. And so spent a lot of time in the US understanding that where businesses were being developed that had both a social mission as well as a commercial mission, and tried to bring that back to Australia and created a social enterprise when doing good is actually good for business. And, the conversation of profits and purpose are no longer mutually exclusive. But we were a little bit ahead of the curveball in Australia with that type of model, and weren't successful in being able to get support from either corporates or any type of funding from VCs. So ended up moving to the States.
So what was it? Was it because we're just too immature in our understanding or appreciation of the potential of that? Or so people weren't ready, or they were just confused? Or why do you think that didn't work here? And what was it? Was there an example that you went to the world with as a social enterprise?
Yeah, so we built a social enterprise, and as part of our research into business models, we really wanted to understand, again, that psychology of what is going to be a great motivator to get people to want to make the world a slightly better place while also being a benefit to them. So doing that research, we understood that gratitude is an incredibly powerful force. So we know that when we're thankful, it's the single most powerful thing we can do every single day to improve our mental health and well-being. We also know that being thankful and expressing gratitude actually improves our physical health. So it's been proven to improve our immune systems, our cardiovascular health, our ability to cope with chronic pain. But we also know from research that being thankful is more than just a feeling. It's actually a really powerful action. So as an example, if we are thankful for women and girls, we're never going to have a conversation about gender equality or eliminating violence against women and girls, because every woman and girl across the globe will be valued and recognised for their contribution to the world. Environmental research tells us that when we're thankful for the planet or thankful for the environment, it's such a powerful force to get us to take action, to want to restore it, regenerate it, look after it, rather than talking about climate change. So we created a social enterprise built around this concept of gratitude. It's called Thankful. And basically the way the model works is whether it's we could have a number of different campaigns or initiatives, whether it's thankful for women and girls, thankful for love, working with LGBTQIA plus communities, thankful for a place to call home, tackling homelessness, thankful for the environment, tackling climate change, etc. It's endless. And using gratitude and being thankful as a powerful force to get people to take action. And what that model was contingent upon was the ability to be able to trademark the word thankful across a number of different categories, which when we marched into a lawyer's office in Melbourne and said, we need you to trademark the word thankful for us, they laughed and fell off their chairs and said, go back to the wonderful world of marketing from which you came from, because that ain't ever going to happen. But I insisted that we give it a go, and we were successful in trademarking the word thankful globally, across more than 36 different categories, which meant that we could then work with brands and organisations who were also committed to wanting to make a change to co-brand product with us and to drive these initiatives to have the positive impact across all of those different issues and challenges that the world is facing. But here in Australia in 2013, the market just wasn't ready for either a social enterprise model. I spoke to a lot of CEOs at some of Australia's largest organisations, and they said, we think you're confused. You can't be both for profit and have such a strong social purpose. You need to be one or the other, either profitable or charitable. And the whole notion of using gratitude as a powerful force to take action, we were told on several occasions that I'd have more chance of boiling the ocean than I would of getting this business up and running. So
that's encouraging.
Very encouraging. VCs, companies in Australia told us our model, commercial model wasn't sustainable. So we figured the only way we were going to do this, and fortunately I had a very understanding and supportive husband, was if we sold everything. So we sold our business, we sold our family home, we sold our beautiful holiday house. We gave up a lifestyle that was incredibly privileged, and moved to the US.
From Melbourne, right?
From Melbourne.
From Melbourne, yeah.
Moved to New York.
And what year was that in 2016? 16.
So we arrived in the December of 2016, and Donald Trump was being inaugurated in January of that year. So pretty turbulent times in the US whilst we were there, and just really highlighted the need for the work that we were doing as well.
So, and why New York? Why the States? What was the environment? What was different about the environment there that you knew or suspected was going to, you get some traction?
So we'd spent a lot of time over in New York, and we had some partners over there. And I think the US at that time, and particularly New York, were very much more advanced in their social enterprise model and their thinking towards it, recognising that it's the new way of doing business. And remembering this is all before COVID, all before the whole businesses have to do better came to the forefront, which really, I think COVID accelerated that type of thinking as well. So they were incredibly supportive. We had business partners. We were doing work with the United Nations as well, particularly with Thankful for Women and gender equality and eliminating violence against women. And we ended up getting investment dollars over in the US as well, and we launched Thankful for Women over there and had some incredible experiences working with women from every demographic. So in New York, working with women who'd been victims of violence and were currently homeless, to Miami elderly women, to break the beauty myth that, regardless of your age, women are beautiful and should be seen and not invisible, and every woman has a story to tell.
That was in Miami.
That was in Florida.
Florida. What was Florida significant? That was in Florida.
No. Well, there's a lot of elderly nursing homes and retirees down there. So, and we just wanted to do things across the state. So, Boston, we worked with women who are chronically ill to remind them that their illness does not define who they are, nor is it how they'll be remembered. In San Francisco and California, we worked with teenage girls to, again, remind them that they can be whoever they want to be, to break stereotypical myths and occupations. And then in New York, we also worked with vulnerable teenage girls, including transgender girls, to help them develop mentors and to see a future, a positive future.
So I can see the social, not so enterprise, that's a kind of everything, but the social and cultural significance and impact there. What was the commercial side of those campaigns? Was that how did that work?
So we work with brands and organisations, who have a commitment to, in the US, as an example, to gender equality. And again, this was at the time of the Me Too movement over in the US, and obviously Donald Trump and some of the conversations he was having around women, really, there was a huge women's movement at the time. So we worked with brands who wanted to support that movement and to be seen to demonstrate it. So that was it was really amazing, and loved doing that work. And it was a great example of the impact that being thankful could have.
So you kind of had arrangements and contracts, relationships with brands. You gave them the opportunity, or you were the conduit to have an impact, a positive impact in those cultures, demographics, however that geographically or otherwise kind of worked. You gave them the ability to make that difference, because you had the relationships with them and you had the branding, right?
Correct. So I think one of the challenges, and this exists today with any organisation, any corporate organisation or any corporate brand, who want to lend their voice or who want to demonstrate their commitment to a cause or have a positive social impact, is how can they do that authentically and how can they do it meaningfully? And, there's been a lot of woke washing, there's a lot of greenwashing, and there's a lot of cynicism with consumers that, brands are just doing it to try and sell me more stuff. Whereby if they partner with an organisation like Thankful, it is meaningful and it is authentic, because they can demonstrate the impact that they're having through Thankful, because we can provide them with tangible case studies. They can see tangibly the difference that it's making, and it provides Thankful provides them with a platform to do good in a very meaningful and authentic way.
And again, no doubt driven by data.
Totally driven by data.
Yeah, so that was right up your alley. You're across all that.
And one of the things that we're really passionate about is collaboration. We firmly believe that we can't do this alone. The world is facing too many big issues for any of us to be able to do it alone. So it's a collaborative platform. We bring together everyone from government partners to corporate partners to not-for-profit organisations, because we don't create any programming ourselves. The programming is done through organisations who are already on the ground, already doing amazing work. We just provide the grant to be able to do that.
Yeah, you join the dots, yeah?
We join the dots.
And with some verification is not the right word, but with some integrity, and you provide that. You're like a third party, pick a brand that people might be a little dubious about their intentions. You kind of bring some integrity to the arrangement, that enterprise, yeah.
Yeah, and we give them demonstrable evidence that they are genuinely committed to wanting to do good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's going back to the word thankful. It's great. I never really thought about it, but and this is obviously the essence of the power of the word and being grateful, is you can't be thankful for anything and at the same time not want it to be.
Totally, and that's why it's so powerful, and that's why it's more than just a feeling. It actually is a positive action, because you can't be thankful for the environment if you're not, without wanting to look after it, without appreciating it, without valuing it. And that's the beauty of the work that we do, whether it is thankful for women, thankful for the planet, thankful for farmers. It's all about valuing, recognising, wanting to protect it, nurture it, restore it, and continue to help it to thrive.
Where do we go now? Do you want to go thankful for farmers?
Sure.
Let's do that. Tell me about that.
So we were still living in New York, 2019, and Australia had this huge global spotlight on it, and all of the news that was coming out of Australia was about the drought, and how tough Aussie farmers were doing. And we were seeing this in New York on a regular basis as well, which was just heartbreaking and devastating. For me, as a very proud and passionate Australian, to see this news coming from Australia. So I reached out to Matt Moran, who'd been a long-term supporter of all of the work we do with Thankful, and said, Matt, and Matt's a fourth-generation farmer, so I knew that he would be right in the middle of this and really understand what was going on, and said, Matt, what can we do to support Australian farmers? And in very typical Matt fashion, he said, well, you can get your butts back here to Australia, because Australia needs Thankful as much as the rest of the world. So we came back to Australia. I spoke to a lot of producers, spoke to a lot of industry associations, and really understood fairly quickly that the problems facing Australian agriculture are by no means uniquely Australian. They're challenges facing agriculture across the globe, everything from climate change and climatic conditions to trade wars and tariffs to, pricing, labour, etc. And tried to work out what we could do to make a positive impact and to do something, again, that was unique to support Australian agriculture and farming. And still living in New York, we did a lot of work with Cornell University and Johns Hopkins, which I know you know Cornell, Charlie.
Well, I was talking about it yesterday.
Yeah, and Johns Hopkins University as well. And really tried to shape something that was going to be meaningful. So one of the things we understood talking to those producers on the front line was that whilst they were enormously appreciative of the efforts Australians were making to support them, the narrative at that time was about charity and sympathy and poor farmers need our help. We need to support people in the bush. And that's not the narrative they wanted. They just wanted a narrative of value and recognition. So we set about trying to change the narrative through Thankful for Farmers to remind Australians that every single time we walk around the supermarket and we stuff our trolley with the most amazing quality of produce, to stop and think about the men and women who's grown it for us and the process that they go through to grow that. And if you think about two of the biggest challenges the world are facing, it's climate change and food security. And who's sitting at the heart of the solution to both? It's the hardworking men and women who grow our food. It's you.
And they sit those issues sit side by side.
You can't have a conversation with one without having a conversation about the other.
Yeah.
And farmers are frontline environmentalists as custodians of the land, but they're also frontline of food supply chain and responsible for our future food security. So we launched Thankful for Farmers at the end of 2019 here in Australia and have three key pillars that we focus on. One is the farm. So how can we help the farm practice more climate smart or sustainable agricultural practices? Two, the farmer. How can we support the health and well-being of our farmers so that we have a future generation of farmers? We know that farmers suffer disproportionately high rates of mental health and wellness, but cardiovascular disease, they also suffer disproportionately high rates of, etc. And then farming communities. How can we support regional and rural communities to ensure that they have the infrastructure that they need in order to be able to thrive? Because if they're not thriving, it's going to be really challenging for our agricultural sector to thrive as well.
And I had the pleasure of getting to know you and Mike in September 2019. October 2019?
September 2019, yeah.
Which is, hang on. What did we work out? No, it's not quite 5 years ago. It'll be 5 years at the end of this year.
Yeah.
Through your very generous association with Delicious and their annual awards, and I was most surprised to be recognised there, and then our media association with it, and I essentially it was only a couple of weeks later.
It was about 4 weeks later. It was quick.
I even know it was that, because Angelica was going overseas around the same time, just before, just after. We'd only been away. We'd been in Italy for 2 months, right? Came back, and Lucy Allen was saying, "Oh, you should come to this award thing." And I think I'd already been to one the year before or something. And I, yeah, it's cool. But it's like I've just got back and da-da-da. And she was quite insistent. And I went, okay, I'll make it work. It's fine. And then you guys are very sneaky. And then that's when I met Matt.
Yep.
And then literally a few weeks later, you literally said on stage, and then you'll be going to New York in 3 weeks. And I was just like beaming inside going, oh my God, how's that going to work?
Yeah.
And then off we went for like 8 or 10 days.
Yeah.
It was so fun.
It was so fun.
And there was a reason behind it though.
Yeah, there was a reason.
It wasn't just like, let's go overseas for a jaunt.
No, it wasn't a jaunt. We worked pretty hard in those 8 to 10 days. So we went up to Cornell University and saw some of the incredible work that they're doing up there at the time, and some of the research that they're doing and the food technology and new food resources that they're developing. And then we went to Pennsylvania and we had an amazing dinner with a whole group of local farmers in Pennsylvania, which was really incredible, I think, for you and Matt to hear some of the stories of the challenges that those farmers were going through and how similar they were to the challenges Australian farmers are going through. And that was an incredibly fun couple of days in Pennsylvania.
It was.
And then back to New York, where we had a roundtable discussion at the Australian consulate where we brought people from all over America, thought leaders in agriculture together, again, to really understand and identify these challenges facing agriculture globally. And then that evening or a couple of days later, we hosted a dinner for about 150 people at the Rockefeller building on the rooftop overlooking Fifth Avenue, where we showcased the best of Australian food and wine. And Matt did an amazing job developing and curating a menu that showcased such delicious Australian food and wine. And you emceed the evening for us as well, so it was lots of fun, but busy.
It was an amazing, I just got goosebumps thinking about it. It was so fun. And when I think, like, it was incredible. I mean, I guess, with your marketing background and like just pulling things off, it makes sense. But it was incredible to have Australian food there, in that setting in New York, and having been to Cornell a few days before and our dinner. It was an amazing experience. I often think about that, whenever I think of the United States, I go, oh, New York, and that was the last time I was pretty sure it's the last time I was there. And I've got really lovely memories of that.
I think standing on that rooftop of the Rockefeller Center overlooking Fifth Avenue, and the September, we weren't sure what the weather was going to be because it can be a little fickle at that time of year in New York, but it was a beautiful, clear night, and it was surreal, actually.
And how good a bloke's Matt Moran?
Yeah, we love Matt. He's pretty awesome, and to have his support. Matt's been a big supporter of our work since we launched Thankful in Australia in 2013, and he has been incredibly generous with his time and with his resources as well to support us. And when we launched Thankful for Farmers, having him as our ambassador, as a fourth-generation farmer and somebody who's built his entire career on the quality of produce that this country produces, we couldn't have asked for a better person. And again, he has been incredibly supportive and generous and of all of our efforts.
We won't pump his tyres up too much, but what I love about Matthew, many things, is he's just so down to earth. There's nothing like he's one of, dare I say, is one of Australia's most recognised and best chefs, given his career and I interviewed him a couple of years ago too. I can't remember what episode that was. It was so fun sitting in Chiswick there in Wallara having the chat. But given his experience and how he's put a stamp on the Australian restaurant scene because of the quality of the man, but also the food, he's a real asset to Thankful, isn't he?
Oh, he's incredible. And, Matt pioneered the whole paddock to plate philosophy in this country. So, and his passion for Australian farmers and for the quality of produce and supporting Australian farmers is, second to none. And you're right, he's so incredibly down to earth, and which is what we love so much about him. And his passion is contagious as well. Plus, we love going to Chiswick. It's my favourite restaurant.
Chiswick's awesome. It is. And I haven't been to his farm yet at Rockley. He's got the pub there as well.
Have you been to Rockley Pub?
No, it's not somewhere I generally go through on the way to anywhere, but it's not that far away.
Well, it's
actually
definitely
just a shade over 2 hours.
Definitely worth a trip.
Yeah, I'm dying to get there. He's due for a trip back to Hannaminno, and I'm keen to get to his farm. And so, tell us what does it look like? How does Thankful for Farmers? What impact is it having in Australia in terms of those pillars? What have been some of the activities or initiatives?
Yep.
I know there's the biggest kind of one is that you guys are involved in. We'll definitely get to that, but in terms of the Thankful Farmers initiative to this point, what have been some of the highlights?
Yeah, there's been lots of highlights actually, and
what about lowlights?
Yeah, there's been plenty of highlights
as
well.
Let's focus on the highs.
Let's focus on the highlights. The
That's why I emphasise it's not all beer and Skittles, you know.
You know what, Charlie? It is not all beers and Skittles, and I can't tell you how many times I felt like I've just been bashing my head against a brick wall. I feel like I take one step forward sometimes and two steps backwards, and I have said on numerous occasions, doing good should not be this hard. And, you know, doing this work has sometimes had an impact on my own mental health and wellness, because your self-worth is often so associated with the work that you do. And when you feel like you're not achieving something, or you're not getting the support for a good cause, or for something that you know is going to make a positive difference in so many people's lives, you just, you wonder about your own self-worth sometimes. So it definitely takes its toll, and you have to remember, I have to force myself to remember to focus on the things we have achieved rather than the things we haven't yet achieved. But in terms of thankful for farmers, the impact we've had so far has been varied, actually. So we've helped fund a drought resilience program to support regional and rural communities, which was fantastic. And the other thing we've done is funded the Queensland Rural Flying Doctor Service to produce a book called Mental Health and Wellbeing on the Land, which has been written by frontline clinicians and is available for free for every single person in regional and rural Australia, Queensland. And we know the impact that's had. That book has been reprinted multiple times.
Awesome.
We've also funded a documentary called Thankful for Soil, where we are celebrating the men and women who are doing amazing things to regenerate the land and the soil. And it's a real celebration of these farmers, and it's farmers from, you know, broadacre horticultural farmers in Queensland all the way through to beef farmers in Tasmania. And it's 25 minutes long. And it's meant to be an education as to why soil is so important and the value of it. And that appeared in Qantas in-flight entertainment, both domestic and international, for 6 months. So we're really proud of that as well. And it's free if people want to host screenings in their regional and rural community.
Where do they find that on your
Online,
website?
yeah.
Online?
So thankfulforfarmers.com.au.
Sure.
And 4 is a numeric 4. Yep. The other thing we've done is help fund a program to support regional and rural mums, which is work that we're very proud of as well. We've also funded a piece of research with Deakin University, which is going to be released in August, to understand the impact that a farmer's, the impact or the correlation between a farmer's health and wellness and their propensity to practice climate smart agriculture. So that's a really interesting piece of research that will be released in August that we did through Deakin University. So really, again, understanding the psychology. If a farmer's more likely to look after themselves, are they more likely to look after the land? Or does practicing regenerative farming help them improve their own mental health and wellness?
How do you find, was that a survey, or how does that kind of, how do you gather that info?
So they did a lot of desk research, and the next stage of that is to actually take it out and do a survey and frontline conversation. So
Yeah, cool.
the other thing that we've been doing with Thankful for Farmers is really recognise through the work that we do from farm gate to dinner plate the huge amount of food waste that occurs throughout the supply chain. So we've been trying to do something about that. So one of the pieces of work we did in October last year was run a trial to understand what the opportunity was and what the challenges were with diverting food that's not fit for human consumption back to farm in the form of animal food. And during that 10-week trial with just 6 retailers, we diverted more than 3.8 tonnes of food back to farm in the form of livestock feed and animal food, which was amazing. So we're now looking at how we can roll that program and scale that program out nationally so that it's incredibly efficient and overcomes some of the challenges we identified during the trial.
That's big.
It's huge.
What sort of food stuff? So retailers, it was packaged goods, it was what the things are out of date, or like what kind of, it was obviously a bit of a mix of stuff, but all obviously okay for animals to eat.
Exactly. So it was predominantly fruit, vegetables and baked goods that was going back to farm. So obviously all okay for animals and livestock to eat. And then the other piece of research or piece of work that we've been doing, which was funded by the Queensland government, was understanding how we could help, particularly in horticulture, divert farm gate food waste. So we know that 30% in horticulture or food that gets produced never actually leaves the farm for one reason or another. And that usually either just gets stockpiled on farm, gets buried on farm, or just gets ploughed back into the ground. And can you imagine 30% of everything you produce never leaving the farm? It comes at a huge cost to farmers, and they're not recovering any value from that right now. So we have been doing research and consultation with a local community. We've identified a local community in Queensland that is particularly big region of horticultural produce. We've engaged with farmers, we've engaged with local council, industry associations to understand, again, the barriers and the challenges around that. And through that work, the other thing we identified was it's not just organic waste that doesn't leave the farm, it's a huge amount of plastic that doesn't leave the farm, particularly in hort. So we've come up with a solution that can help divert both plastic and organic from waste from landfill and create byproducts, which then create a circular economy solution of both plastic and organic, and a really innovative business model where farmers would receive a percentage of profits from the output and the sale of those byproducts. So they're being incentivized basically to take it to a central location to divert it from landfill and or stockpiling on their farm. And it was a 69-page report we produced. We're just waiting to secure funding to pilot this program up in a community in Queensland, and it would be the first of its kind. It's totally scalable, and working with local council as well as all the local farmers. So there's lots of excitement around that. So that's super exciting. But the other piece of work that we're doing is at a household. We know globally 61% of all food waste actually occurs in the home, whereas everyone thinks that food waste happens at farm gate, or the majority of it happens at farm gate or happens at retail. Globally, 60% or 61% of food happens in our homes.
So we're starting 100% is produced on the farm. Only 70% of that actually gets off the farm.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine there's a bit of wastage between farm and shelf.
Yep.
I don't know, there's a percentage there somehow generally. And this is, you're talking about fresh food, like horticulture products and stuff. I don't know, pick a number. And then whatever's left that actually gets to the shelf, some of that is going to deteriorate on the shelf, right?
Not fit for human consumption.
Not fit, yeah. And sometimes it's just it doesn't sell because it doesn't look good, right?
Yep.
And then what does get sold, so it'd be interesting to know what percentage of what was produced at the farm is now actually generally is what we've got left actually that gets put in a shopping trolley.
Yep.
You probably know that, being a data-driven person.
So on average, 100 kilos a day per supermarket of food that's not fit for human consumption goes to landfill.
So that would be, it's off.
Whatever, it doesn't look right, it's not going to sell, it can't be sold, it's past its best before date or past its use by date. It's just not selling for whatever it's too brown, but people aren't going to buy brown bananas.
Yeah. Unless they're really good at making banana cake.
Unless they're really good at making banana cake.
They've got a banana cake business.
Yeah. So, approximately 100 kilograms per store per day.
And then that goes in the shopping trolley, and then it gets to the house, and maybe something gets squashed in the bag. I don't know. Let's say it all gets into the fridge.
Yep.
Or the pantry. And then what did you say? How much of that gets wasted?
1 in 5 shopping bags.
Wow.
In Australia. So 1 in 5 shopping bags of everything that we buy ends up in the rubbish bin.
And it ends up in the rubbish bin, right? Not the green waste generally. I mean, not everyone has a green waste bin.
Not everyone has a green waste bin, but it's food that, I think the staggering bit about that 1 in 5 shopping bags is that 70% of everything we throw away is still perfectly edible.
Yeah. Just people go, oh, I don't know what to do with that.
Yep, or the, half an avocado, it's a bit brown, or the spring onions in the fridge have gone a bit limp, or the carrots are a bit floppy, or the capsicum I've used half of it, sat in the fridge for a few days and it looks a bit slimy now. I'm not going to use it. Or the apple's got a brown spot on it, so I'll just throw the whole apple away.
So what's the solution? So there's food that sits in the fridge that is, like, I'll eat anything, right? I'll eat, as I say to my wife when I pull some bag of meat out of the freezer that's like 3 years old, and she goes, "Oh my God," and I go, "Well, when those Siberians found that frozen woolly mammoth that was 10,000 years old, it was good enough for them. I'm sure a 3-year-old meat's fine." So when someone gets to a point where they go, "No one's going to eat that, I can't do anything with that," that's one thing. That in itself is a problem because most of that goes to landfill.
Yep.
There's also a portion where people just go, "I've got half a capsicum and 3 spring onions and a whatever." What's the solution there?
Yeah, so we spent 3 years trying to develop a solution because getting people to reduce household food waste is obviously a behaviour change. So that's pretty hard to be able to do. So we spent 3 years understanding consumers, understanding why we waste food at home, understanding the barriers to getting us to save food. And what we discovered was that most of us don't think we waste very much food. We all think we're good at eating the leftovers in the fridge or using every last bit of ingredient that we have in our fridge, freezer or our pantry. And when we do acknowledge that we waste food, we usually underestimate that by about 50%. So if we knew that going out and talking about waste and food waste specifically was just not going to resonate with people. They were going to shrug their shoulders or roll their eyes and think, "Not my problem, I don't actually do that." We also knew that if we go and talk about climate change and the impact of food waste and climate change, and to give you an example, the impact of food waste and climate change, if food waste were a country, would be the 3rd largest emitter of greenhouse gases in the world behind China and the USA. Food waste emits 9 times more greenhouse gases than the entire aviation industry across the globe. Wow. So it's a huge global challenge. And a climate challenge. But we knew, there's a lot of climate fatigue. Most of us think our little individual action at home is not going to make a difference to impact climate change. So we couldn't talk about climate change. It had to be a message of positivity. And all of that research told us as well that the best way to get people to reduce food at home was to get them to use it and to show them how to use it. But digging deeper into that research, we understood that recipe fatigue is real. So we only look at recipes about 3 times a month, usually on a weekend when we have the mental capacity to do so, because we're busy. Life is too hectic. I don't have time to be searching through recipes and looking at recipes. And then the other thing we understood was that the biggest pain in the neck question we all have to answer every single day is, can you guess?
What's for dinner?
Totally. What's for dinner tonight? And we spend at least 20 minutes.
Is that what Mike says all the time? Is that what Mike says all the time? I can see him sneaking away over there.
Yeah.
What's for dinner, Kim?
Oh, what's for dinner tonight? Which, you get to the end of a busy day and he's ignoring you, Charlie.
He's actually really good at
that. Yeah, I've noticed. You get to the end of a busy day, you open your fridge and it could be full, what's for dinner tonight? Yep. Which means that 90% of us either hate cooking or feel lukewarm towards it. So we work with a very clever group of technologists and developed a solution to empower and enable people, one, to answer that question and save them some time, but we've totally flipped the recipe rule book on its head. And instead of starting with the meal, we start with the ingredient. So when you open your fridge, freezer and pantry, you can tell Saveful, which is the name of the app, which is totally free.
Saveful, get it on your phone.
It's available Apple as well as Google Store. And you just plug in or just tick a box what you've got in your fridge, freezer or pantry, 1 ingredient or 100 ingredients, it doesn't matter. And we'll present a whole lot of different meal options of what you can do with those ingredients. But where Saveful gets really clever as well, when you go to that meal, unlike a traditional recipe, which is quite rigid, and often through the rigidity of recipes, you have to go and buy more stuff just to make stuff and to use stuff. With Saveful, everything is totally flexible. So if you need oil, as an example, it could be olive oil, canola oil, vegetable oil, coconut oil, avocado oil. We don't say specifically what... Yeah, and we don't say specifically what veggies you need. We say hard veggies. So you can then go through and click what hard veggies you've got in your fridge, freezer and pantry. and you personalize the recipe based upon what you have at home. And then we show you and tell you how to make it based upon the ingredients that you've got. And it's all been created by chefs, so we know it's going to taste delicious. And there's thousands upon thousands of variations. And there's also lots of hacks and tips. So if you've got a surplus of product, what are all the things you can potentially do with it? Can you pickle it? Can you turn it into jam? How do you store it in your fridge, freezer or pantry to make it last longer? And then there's another section which is really awesome, and it's seasonality. We tell you what's in season at the moment, because often if it's in season, well, firstly, it's going to be more sustainable, but it's in abundance, and hopefully it's a little cheaper as well. So,
and that's just a good thing to. I mean, our bodies, even though we're like whiteys in Australia, and so we're kind of foreign in some ways, our genetic memory is incredible. So, our bodies, in minute but important ways, respond to the seasonality of our diet.
Totally, and we're also supporting Aussie farmers when we shop locally. And as part of that section, you can learn more, and there's a fun farm fact. And we're working with Rabobank, who's one of our partners, to produce video content. So we're bridging the gap from farm gate to dinner plate and introducing men and women to the people who grow our food for us. So people have a greater understanding of who's growing their food and how their food is grown. And because, again, we know through that connection, the more we know about how our food is grown and who's grown our food, the less likely we are to want to waste it, and we value it a lot more.
It's pretty comprehensive.
It's very cool, and it's only getting more comprehensive. Last week we launched communities within Safewell, so you can go in and create your own
like recipe challenges or meal challenges. Is that
you can create your own Safewell community. You can put a photo up of what your community looks like. You can invite as many people as you like. Your community could be your family, your school. Matt Moran has created his Safewell community and has invited everyone to join his Safewell community to save food and save money and save time with him. And in the month of May, the person who saves the most will get the opportunity to have dinner at Chiswick for 4 and to meet Matt as well. So, and we've got a whole pipeline of new features that we're looking at launching. So it's,
I might
pretty exciting.
Challenge him over something. You know what I have challenged him on is in the past is the quality of our lamb, like a lamb who we've had a lamb off. He reckons his is better. I reckon mine's better. That's great.
So we need the Charlie Arnott Safewell community. You need to go into
They were they a chef? Someone's going to listen to this and say, that was me, but it was like a chef or someone who kind of it'd be really good for. And they were going, that's fantastic. And I said, well, it's on the thing. It was only a couple of days ago. Yeah. It's so exciting. And I think what a great solution to a massive problem. So that's cool, having a little community. Have you got a little community with you and Mike? Do you have like internal house Safewell meal challenges?
We do have a Safewell family community that we've got.
Who's winning? He's pretty competitive. Are you?
I'm more competitive. So, yeah.
He may not agree. He probably reckons he's more competitive.
Maybe.
There was something else in there. How do you test those things? Were you literally one of the guinea pigs? Were you going, pretending you've got, I don't know, stuff in the fridge just to see what happened?
So we have...
anyone can do that, really, couldn't they?
Anyone could do that, but everything is created with chefs. So everything is tested before it goes live. And we put up 5 new meal frameworks every single month, and we've just launched a whole... So it is tested before it goes up by chefs and all of the different variations. So always tastes delicious.
Well, what gets into the app is delicious. Has there ever been a time when something's popped up and they've cooked it and they're going, oh my God, that's terrible, because the algorithm hasn't worked, or, something, a chef's gone, oh my God, I made a mistake there.
Touch wood.
Surely there's got to be a few.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Oh, not today. Classic. And we work really hard to make sure it doesn't.
Yeah. Everything's tested. That's so good. So everyone can you download it, upload it. I don't know. You download it, don't you?
Download it.
In your phone.
And it's totally free. And
you sign up, sign in.
Just got to sign in. Create your account basically. and then you're set to go, and you can create your Safeful community within it. In May, one of our partners is Qantas, so from mid-May you'll be able to enter your Qantas frequent flyer number and have the potential to earn additional Qantas points, as well as your Greenleaf within Qantas as well. So Greenleaf is their sustainability platform, so recognising and rewarding people for acting sustainably.
So as a frequent flyer member,
Yep.
you can clog up points with that, like, sub-program within that.
Correct.
Is that right? What do they do?
Greenleaf tier.
What happens then if you get your Greenleaf?
You get open to additional rewards and benefits. So, yeah.
Oh, now here's a challenge for you. Because I know you love them, is what do the airlines do with their waste?
That's a good question, and I'm not in a position to be able to answer that on their behalf, but I'm sure they have a whole team of very dedicated sustainability folk who are working on managing that problem.
I'm sure. Hey, there's a gardener there. Do you recognise that bloke?
I think that is that Louis? Oh, no, it's Mike. That's Mike collecting
Hey, mate, this lawn needs a mow and a few leaves need picking up, please.
One of the many advantages of living here is the beautiful palm trees, but they also tend to drop their fronds. So particularly on a windy day, Mike is constantly picking up fronds.
And I also understand they're not good for mulching because they're
hard. They're really hard to chop up.
To break down. You can put them through, even if you put them through a mulcher, they're very, is it acidic or alkaline? They're kind of, they're not a good thing unless you've got lots of other like manures and other foodstuffs and so on. They're not good as just, you can't really mulch them by themselves. But this is so beautiful. It's sunny, you got a little pool over there. And so what else about Safeful? Like, people can access it. It's growing in terms of its functionality and its usability, and I guess, kids can use it. Maybe kids go, hey, Mum, dinner's on me.
So we launched our school program in New South Wales as well as Queensland in the last 2 weeks as well, which is, again, super exciting, where the schools will be going and creating their school community and then competing against each other to be the most Safeful school. And as part of that, every school that signs up through our partnership with Rabobank will get the opportunity to have a farmer come to visit them again as well, to educate these kids where their food's coming from, how it's grown. And we've had lots of stories from mums who've told us that previously they could never get their kids in the kitchen to even wipe dishes. Now they can't get their kids out of the kitchen because the tool is so fun to use. Safeful, it's quite intuitive and it's very visual. And all they want to do is create meals based upon what they've got at home. And the kids are now cooking, a couple of times a week. And there's kid-friendly meals. There's lots of lunchbox suggestions for kids as well. It's very cool. Lots of new frameworks, school program, communities, Qantas, and we've got some amazing partners. Again, I think
Any you want to mention?
Yeah, I think the beauty of Safeful is, again, we've been able to bring together multiple levels of government, all the way from the support of federal government to state governments. Particularly the Queensland government have been very generous with support, but working with Love Food Hate Waste in New South Wales and Green Industries in South Australia and Eat Well Tasmania as well. We've then got some incredible industry partners on board, but then we've got amazing brand partners on board as well. So working with Bird's Eye, we're working with Bega, we're working with Nestle and Maggi, and we're working with Goodman Fielder. Rabobank, who I've mentioned, are a partner, and as are Qantas. And we're in conversations with other brands who are committed to reducing food waste and really helping Australian families put more food on their tables right now, because with the cost of living crisis, we know 80% of Aussie families are doing it tough.
Well, it's such an unnecessary wastage, isn't it? Like you've got the solution. You've got a wonderful solution for it. But at the end of the day, it's just about kind of monitoring what's in the fridge and being a bit more immediate, which is not necessarily an easy thing. But, here's a solution for a massive... Well, the food gets used, so it's it gets literally consumed, and the nutrition is contributing to their health, right? Hopefully, it's good quality food. So there's a big tick, and then what it's not doing is going into the landfill, which is a real problem anyway. So it's like it's a double good.
Absolutely, and as part of the what's in season section, it's all about there's nutrition about that particular product as well, which is really important. But when 70% of everything that we throw in the rubbish bin is still perfectly edible, and when we know that the cost of food right now is so expensive and so many families are feeling the pinch, this really helps families to use more of what they've got, waste less, and put more food on their table. So they're saving money as well as saving food and saving time. So important. And we've heard, again, so many stories from users who've told us, this app is a lifesaver. It's literally changed lives.
Does it add up the dollars? Like if you've used this and don't throw it out, then you've saved yourself having to buy X amount again?
It does. And obviously with any of the tracking, it's all an estimate and it's all a potential. And we have an algorithm to create that, but it tells you how much you've potentially saved in both dollars as well as in kilograms of food, and then what that equals potentially in carbon that you've saved from going to landfill as well.
That's cool. And I mean, I'm not a big fan of kids on devices. However, it's a part of life, and if they're using a device in a productive way like that, which is contributing to the family, creates a good food culture, creates responsibility, gives mum and dad a break from the kitchen somewhat, and it's good fun. You can have, as you say, you can have like inter-house
community
kind of little challenges.
Yep.
Okay, so there was something else there. Anyone else in that sort of sphere of Saveful you want to reference or mention? Or, I mean, that's a big thing. So where are you up to as a business model? Where is it up to? Do you need help from people? What do you need?
Thanks for asking, Charlie. We always need help because we have big ambitions to grow this and scale it. Since launching in November, we've already got over 12,000 users on Saveful, which is very exciting. We've got all of those amazing brand partners. We would love more brand partners and more brand support.
So just on that,
yep.
If there's anyone listening who is associated with a brand, big or small, I mean, what sort of brands would be helpful to contact you, or what sort of brands are you looking for? Obviously food brands, or like what?
I think the beauty of Saveful, and we've demonstrated this, is we've got Qantas on board. They're not a food brand.
Yeah.
We've got Rabobank on board because of their commitment to supporting Australian agriculture and Australian farmers and wanting to reduce food waste. So it's really any organisation who has a commitment to wanting a sustainability commitment to wanting to help Australian families put more food on their tables right now, and also to act in a sustainable way. So across any industry.
Not as though, I don't produce food, I'm not relevant. It's like your support, this is a wonderful social enterprise. People can like get behind and be part of something that could be a game changer environmentally, human health, because and economically for families.
All of those things. So there's no real industry. We'd love to talk to anybody who would love to be a brand partner and be part of our sponsorship network within Saveful. We also have big ambitions that whilst we've launched in Australia, Saveful is totally scalable. And really interestingly, we have already got a lot of users in the US and the UK. At the moment, Saveful is very much from a content perspective, Australian focused, particularly with the seasonality with some of our language. But we're already in conversations with retailers in the US about how they want to support and sponsor. Saveful, we can integrate into loyalty programs like we're doing with Qantas integrating into their frequent flyer program. If a retailer has a loyalty program, we can integrate so they can reward people with points for doing the right thing sustainably. And as I mentioned, we have got a big product pipeline of new features that we're constantly looking at launching and rolling out. That takes money to be able to build those features and to scale. So would love to talk to any potential investors who may be interested in investing in a social enterprise that, we're already revenue generating as well with those corporate partnerships. In fact, before we'd launched in November and before we had a product on the market and before we had a single user. We did have Qantas, Rabobank, Bird's Eye, Goodman Fielder, Nestle and Bega supporting Saveful. So we were revenue generating before we'd even launched a product. So that tells you something about the confidence and the quality of this product that we have. So we'd love other brands, other investors, so that we can build and scale.
And the need for it. I mean, there's been a need, but it's like, that's what a fantastic solution. Oh, bloody hell, I had another question there. Oh, what I'm going to do when we wrap it up, I'm just clocking it myself because I often forget to sort of mention it. We're changing our little season, not schedule, our approach to our season. So this is kind of season 8, I think it is.
Yep.
That you'll be in. And what we'll do is a Q&A. I've done Q&As with everyone else except for one or two that didn't have the time.
Yeah.
So we'll do a little one after this, and we will be using that between seasons to keep our listeners kind of on the case. So it's be like a 10 or 15 minute little thing. I've got a little set of questions, Q&A.
Yep.
They're not really yes or no's, but they're reasonably succinct. You can waffle on as long as you want.
Okay.
So we'll do that in a minute. Was there anything else? So what I have to say, and what I understand about yourself and Mike, is you have an amazing capacity to get, I'm going to use the word the right people, but the right people in the room for different things. Like there's the two of you. You have others, you've got your, sort of committee, and we meet every quarter. The last couple I've been absent, so I know I'm a naughty boy. But you have a support network somewhat around you, but you two are full-time, right?
Yep.
And you've been doing this. I've known you for nearly 5 years now, and I've only ever known you to be doing this full-time.
Yep.
Whether it was New York or Melbourne or Sydney or now here. Like, how do you keep going? What is it that keeps you dedicated to something that is you're getting some amazing traction on that you've been working at for so long? Is there any tips and tricks?
That's a great question, and goes back to what I was talking about before. Some people have said to us with the launch of Saveful, gosh, you've done an amazing job. You've got all of these incredible brands that you're working with, and you've got them on board. And so fast. And I laughed because, some of these organisations we've been talking to 3-4 years, sometimes longer, nothing happens quickly and nothing happens overnight. And I once given a very great piece of advice that, it takes 7 to 9 years to be an overnight success. Because everyone thinks they only see you when you're doing something or when they perceive it to be successful. They don't see all of the hard work that goes into it to get there and the sacrifices that we've made. We have sold everything. We don't own anything. And we've gone for months years without taking a salary or earning an income. And that in itself takes its toll. The stress and the pressure of all of that. But this is not my job. This is my life. And I really don't think I could be doing anything else. And just the sense of purpose and, my bucket gets filled when I see the impact that we're having, and I hear stories from people who are using Saveful, how their life has been changed, or how this is going to change their life, or how it's changed their habits and it's making a difference. When I hear stories about how the work we're doing through Thankful for Farmers is making a difference, through the mental health and wellness book that we funded, or the fact that we diverted 3.8 tonnes of food from going to landfill with just 6 retailers, and we've developed a solution that we're looking for funding to be able to scale and roll out. They're big things that we're doing, but it's not easy. And, it is a roller coaster of emotions, and any entrepreneur will tell you it's a roller coaster of emotions. Starting starting a business of any kind is not easy. Starting a business where you're committed to doing good, I think, is even harder, because it's not always valued by society in the same way as if you're starting a business that's going to make millions of dollars very quickly. Any social enterprise is a long-term initiative, and you need to invest with your heart as much as with your dollars.
And you got a good buddy with that gardener bloke over there too. He's pretty good.
Yeah, Mike, my partner, we do it together. And, if I'm having a bad day, he's there to pick me up. Or if he's having a bad day, I'm there to pick him up and say, come on, we can keep doing this and let's keep going. And it's great. And, it is largely the two of us who do this on a day-to-day basis. We've achieved all of this with us being the only two full-time employees, if you like. And again, if you think about what we've achieved with two people,
It's incredible.
It's, and I think our greatest skill is, one, being able to bring the right people together, but it's just getting stuff done and doing it rather than just talking about it. Or, there's a lot of talk, there's a lot of conversation, but we may not always get it 100% right. But if we do it and we're 80% right, we can always fine tune that last 20% to get it perfect. But rather than waiting to get it 100% right before you take action, we'd much rather be out there trying to make a difference at least.
80% of something is better than 100% of nothing.
Correct.
How are we going? Anything else you want to touch on? Any other little initiative? I don't know how you'd fit any more in, but you might.
No, that's most of what we're working on right now. But yeah, how are you going?
Not telling.
Oh, that doesn't seem very fair.
This is me interviewing you. No, I'm well. It's a good question. What are we in? We're in April, long weekend, the Anzac Day long weekend. I've just been part of the launch of Alsawa Farm, which is just out at Veridale, only 20 minutes from here.
Yep.
Mentioned it before. They're starting they've been going for a while, but this is the official launch was on Friday. It's essentially a wellness retreat / farm. They're doing education. They did some beekeeping course, and they've got permaculture today. Eco living was yesterday. They showed the video of the film screening Rachel's farm at Umundi. They had some tree planting yesterday. Jo Walker and her team there done an amazing job. They've got 38 acres, macadamias. Beautiful. They've got some accommodation they're building. It's a really special place. I don't know if there's anything around here quite like it. And so that was the weekend just gone. Rachel Ward came up for the filming for the screening last night.
Yep.
Which was awesome. We had a panel session, Blair Beattie from Farmers Footprint Australia. We just had a couple of nights with him there at the farm as we were doing some things together and a bit of chit-chat. So that's the weekend. I mean, the year's getting away already. Like May's minutes away. And things are good. We're sort of, in a point of looking at the year. I mean, it's probably should have done it in January or February, but we're sort of looking, things have been really busy, and just looking at where we focus our energy this year. The podcast is, the last interview I did was Zach Bush back in November, and that hasn't even been released yet. The last one I put out was September, October. And that was only one. It was a big season last year. I usually do 2 a year, but it was just a big one. So, and I didn't put it on ice, but I just needed to take some time off, focus on the farm, focus on family, sort of look at literally the landscape of my life and see where the focus needs to be. Still working that out. But what the wonderful thing is, I kept on, it happened last night at the film screening, in the panel session, and it was at the night before the launch, and I get lots of good feedback, and people saying, you got me through COVID.
Yeah.
Or you've got me. I bought my farm because of what I kind of realised that's what I wanted to do, and I'm, or I don't know.
Pretty special.
Yeah, it makes it all worthwhile, because you don't go looking for that sort of those comments, but when they just turn up in a very organic kind of way, it's lovely. It makes me I'm really grateful for the impact it's having, which is not necessarily why I did it in the first place. I mean, I did it because it sounded fun.
Yeah.
But it seems to resonate. And what I did find out the other day was that due to, as a measure of, let's call it success of podcasting and how many downloads one might get in the first week of the release of any episode, we're in the top 5% of podcasts in the world.
Congratulations, Charlie.
Yeah,
That's pretty awesome.
I had no idea that. We had no idea. So that was pretty cool. And this is our 4th year, and we've entered ourselves in 3 Australian Podcast Awards, and 4 actually. Tell a lie. That's 4, and 2 of those 4 years we've been shortlisted.
Wow.
The last 5, down to the last 5 for each.
An amazing achievement.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sound like I'm pumping up my own tyres, and I probably am, but in terms of I guess I'm
Charlie,
talking myself back into a season 8.
You're allowed to pump up your own tyres.
Yeah. I just think that there's obviously some value there for people, and certainly you have provided a lot of value today, and thank you for your time.
Oh, thank you. I feel very humble to be included, so thank you.
Oh, no, look, it's well, we've been talking about it for years, right?
Yeah.
When you're in Melbourne there, and in Sydney. I did come to see you in Sydney, but
I think we had lunch or something.
That's
breakfast
right.
instead.
Yeah, we did too, in Manly there.
Yeah.
Manly? Neutral Bay, no. Where were you? You were there somewhere.
It was Balmoral Beach.
Might have been Balmoral.
Yeah.
So let's leave it there. I see someone lurking around the kitchen here. He's good at not biting, isn't he?
Trying to tiptoe.
I don't know. I was hoping he might join us. Kim, thank you so much. It's been awesome.
Thank you,
we're going to do a little Q&A straight after this. I'm pretty sure I can do it while the other one keeps uploading. That's what I did yesterday. So I hope I don't stuff that up. And thank you so much for your time. And thank you so much, both you and Mike, your contribution to the landscape of the food system in Australia and, dare I say, globally. What you're doing for farmers, what you're doing for every so many facets of people's lives. Whether they're a woman, it's thankful for women. Food, saveful, farmers. I mean, there's touch points throughout the Australian community on so many different levels. And thank you for being the troopers you are.
Thank you, Charlie.
To make that happen. And I look forward to challenging Matthew.
Okay, want to see that Safeful challenge?
No,
Charlie Arnott community on Safeful.
I don't know I'm going to have as many as him. But we'll wrap it up there, Kim.
Thank you, Charlie.
This podcast is produced by Rhys Jones at Jaeger Media. If you enjoyed this episode, please feel free to subscribe, share, rate and review. For more episode information, please head over to www.charliearnott.com.au.